Hi guys, my name is Caitlin Yaki, and I'll be sharing research on the roosting habits of cattle egrets in Hilo, Hawaii. Research in general is invaluable and helps science progress and collaborate. Without the knowledge we gain through research, it would be difficult to help save and care for the planet and all its biodiversity. This is a quote that I put up here that I really like from Jane Goodall that I think really sums up the importance of science and the studies we're doing. So let's go on to questions and hypothesis. So Hilo has a population of cattle egrets, and I'm aiming to kind of understand their patterns by asking the question, are cattle egrets diurnal or nocturnal? So this is kind of just focusing on, are they more likely to be active and away from the communal roosting site during the day, or more doing that at the evening? Study and observation helps understand behavior of wildlife, and without this info, we cannot move to protect species. The communal roost in Hilo offers a great opportunity to study them based on leaving and returning to the tree, and this will help us understand when they're most active. So hypothesis, my null hypothesis is there will not be a significant difference in return and departure numbers. And my alternative hypothesis is that there will be a significant difference. Let's move into introductions and methods. So it has been shown across a wide variety of fields that species adapt to specific niches within their environment. It can range from bird calls not overlapping, from wavelengths to time of day, to the layer of a canopy a species exists in, and there's plenty more examples. These niches evolve over time and create a divergence in animal behavior and phenotype. The distinction between those most active during the day versus at night is referred to as diurnal or nocturnal. Cattle egrets likely inhabit one of these time frames, so let's explore their history and information to better understand their background. Cattle egrets originated in Africa, and they were introduced to the island as a means of control for fly populations around cattle herds. Similar to their roosting spot in Hilo, they can mostly be found near other coastal areas or swamps in very large groups. They primarily feed on small animals, but consume a large amount of biomass. They are also known to form dense breeding roosts, and research suggests that they are most active just after sunrise or right before sunset. This is really helpful information in designing an experiment around what they do between these active times. When the large communal roosting areas reach a capacity, there can actually be losses, and it can even cause a shift in foraging times if there are too many birds in that area. So, while I'm hypothesizing that birds will be more active during the day, there are studies that show they have continue to vocalize throughout the night. However, many birds have adapted to a diurnal lifestyle similar to mammals, so it'll be interesting to see what they do end up doing, and we can find our local roosting site near the beaches in Hilo by Keaukaha. This is just a cool image. If you've ever been down by Carlsmith, this is a smaller area of their roosting site, and if you can picture it, off to your left is a bigger tree. It's huge. You can't miss it. When you're driving by, definitely check it out. You'll see tons of white birds. And then this is just a map to help you visualize where it is if you do want to go bird watching or do any of your own follow-up experiments. This study in particular is important because of their proximity to the airport. Gaining information about their behavior throughout the day and night could lead to better modification of flights, human movement, and alternatives to lethal measures to controlling the bird populations and avoiding accidents with planes. Let's go to methods. So the setup. To create a set of methods, several assumptions were made. The first was that there will be a sufficient number of birds to count near the communal roosting area. Secondly, I am assuming that birds leaving the roosting area will be more active or hunting, while birds returning to the roost will be considered resting. The final assumption is that the best times for counting will be right before sunset and after sunrise based on other research. This experiment was conducted for 7 days to get a decent replication over a period of time. The birds were counted for 1 hour, 30 minutes after sunrise, and again an hour and a half prior to sunset for 1 hour. The area considered to be roosting was approximately 250 feet in diameter around the tree, and a bird was only considered to be leaving if they took flight, moved outside this area, out of sight, and did not circle back to the tree. Returning birds arrived from outside the circle and landed within that 250 feet, and all of the bird counts were tallied and recorded. A 2-sample t-test was used to determine statistical significance of my findings. The incoming and outgoing birds in the morning were tested against each other, and then the evening was done as well. Then another set of tests was done between the incoming birds at night and morning and the outgoing birds. The alpha for this test was set to be 0.05. Let's move into results and discussion. So the results are shown below in the t-test, and this is a lot of information to maybe just take in off of a slide, but it does show that there was significantly lower alpha if you look closely. And then the P and T values for the various 2-sample t-test is shown, and you can see the different comparisons, and we'll go on to the next slide that kind of, I think, has a better visual. So here's a better one, and the first graph compares how many birds came in during the morning versus birds going out also in the morning, and then the second one does the same with evening, so again comparing those coming in versus those going out. And then the two at the bottom here are more comparing morning to evening numbers. So the first one is birds leaving in the morning and birds leaving in the evening. And there you can see there's a lot more that leave in the morning and a lot less leaving in the evening. Versus on the other side, a lot more birds coming in the morning, coming in the evening, and fewer coming in the morning. So overall, let's go to our next slide. Maybe, there we go. These results, to me at least, clearly and significantly showed that according to our assumptions, the birds are more active during the day and more restful in the evening, based on all the assumptions we made. So the t-test again clearly showed a pattern for these birds in returning and leaving the roost. It appears cattle egrets are more likely to be active during the day, which would make them diurnal and not nocturnal. Due to their initial introduction as being a means of fly and pest control in cattle herds, it would make sense that they would be diurnal, as that's the same time as the cattle are most likely to be active and outside and having issues with flies. It is possible that other endemic species also could have suffered and currently suffer due to the overcrowding of the diurnal niche, and they may have been pushed to other activity. Even though the study appears to have strong results, there were still plenty of flaws and generalizations that could be improved for better, more concrete results. Some of the issues are outlined here on this slide, including the lack of numbers, human error, and other issues like not having an efficient way to measure exactly 250 feet or track every bird. Having a better setup and longer times would be beneficial to find out more about their patterns. As described in the introduction, there can be secondary losses when roosting areas become overcrowded, and it can also cause some birds to change their behavior, including becoming more active at night. While it seems that the egrets of Hilo are still more active during the day, it really can't be generalized to all egret populations without more information and studies. To summarize, this study, it seems that cattle egrets are more likely to exhibit diurnal foraging patterns, but more research should be conducted to more thoroughly understand their habits. And then here are my references. I used a variety of papers, some really cool ones that are specific to airports and Hilo that I think are worth checking out if you're more interested in this topic. We can talk about some careers and important people next. So this is Jessie Knowlton. She's a woman in STEM who focuses on vertical foraging shifts in Hawaiian birds, and she also works in avian conservation. She researches species and communities of birds and is recognized as an avian ecologist. And I found her to be very interesting and a really cool role model. And then I know many of us know Professor Hart here at Hilo. I know some of my other group members actually picked him as well. He's a really fantastic person if you're interested in getting to know your Hawaiian birds or getting out in the field. He is really busy, but really wonderful to study with. He's a professor, like I said, here at Hilo, and works studying our endemic species. He's renowned for his ability to define bird calls and has several projects in process right now. So here's a list of other possible careers in avian biology, including professor, land manager, veterinarian. There's lots of things you can do with birds. And then you can also work with just tons of species, right? We have birds across the world. There's so many options if you do want to travel and explore. And we have such a diversity of birds as well that you're not going to find a lack of research areas. And they're definitely always going to need more avian veterinarians and biologists because they're also very indicative of your ecosystem. So here's some more specific avian positions that I looked up. I thought this first one was really interesting as an avian veterinarian in Alaska. There's one up there. She works specifically with owls and eagles, and to me that'd be a little bit of a scary job, but sounds really cool. You can also go into like more wildlife research as an avian wildlife biologist, and you can also use it to study land management, like I was talking about. How the cattle egrets, you maybe want to work with them around the airport. You definitely want to work with birds around big buildings going up in protected areas. You can also obviously go and be a professor and conduct research of your own, which I think would be very cool. And then working towards, like if you are interested in any of these careers, to be a vet, you need a bachelor's first, then your DVM, and then you have to get licensed. And if you want to specialize, there's tons that comes after, including residency and continued board certification and education. And then you also are going to have to do a lot of interning, probably a lot of free labor to get your foot in the door. A biologist, you're probably also going to need a bachelor's, probably a master's or a PhD if you really want to get into research. And then it never hurts to just load up on field experience. If you want to be a professor, again, you kind of want to focus in on that education. You're going to need a bachelor's, probably a PhD, research experience, proposals for what you're interested in, and then I would hope that you would have some education experience or like at least care to educate students. So with that, that is the end of my presentation for senior seminar. Thank you everyone for tuning in, and I hope you have a good rest of your semester. Thank you.